In June of 632 AD, the Prophet Muhammad died. And in that moment, something strange happened to one of the most recited texts in human history. There was no book. Not a single complete written copy of the Quran existed anywhere on earth. Not in Medina, not in Mecca, not in any archive or library or private home. The words that hundreds of thousands of people had memorized, recited, and built their lives around, they existed almost entirely in human memory. Scattered across date palm leaves, flat stones, scraps of parchment, and the minds of living men. And then those men started dying. The word Quran doesn't mean scripture. It doesn't mean holy book. In Arabic, it means the recitation. That one word tells you everything about why what happened next was so dangerous. For 23 years, Muhammad received revelation and conveyed it to those around him. His companions memorized it, passed it mouth to mouth, the way you pass a song, not from a page, but from a voice. Some verses were written on whatever was available, palm leaves, animal bones, flat white stones. But there was no single written copy. There didn't need to be. Muhammad was alive. He was the source, the living guarantee. If you had a question about a verse, you went to him. In June of 632 AD, he died. And the guarantee died with him. The first person to truly understand what that meant was a man named Umar ibn al-Khattab. Umar was not a quiet man. He had once been one of Muhammad's fiercest enemies before becoming one of his closest companions. When the Prophet died, Umar was the one standing in the street, refusing to believe it, insisting Muhammad would return. Abu Bakr, the first caliph, the man now leading the Muslim community, had to stop him, calm him, recite a verse to pull him back to reality. That same Umar, hard, decisive, unafraid of anything, came to Abu Bakr a few months later, afraid. A battle had just been fought, and it had changed everything. The battle was at Yamama, a region in Central Arabia, December of 632, barely 6 months after Muhammad's death. A rival prophet named Musaylima had raised an enormous army. The first caliph sent Khalid ibn al-Walid, the greatest general of the era, to crush him. Khalid won. But the cost haunted Umar. Dozens of men who had memorized the Quran died in that battle. The sources disagree on the exact number. Some say 70, some say far more. What mattered to Umar wasn't the count, it was the pattern. If every war cost the community its memorizers, they were slowly losing something that could never be replaced. Not soldiers, not cities, verses. Umar told Abu Bakr, "I fear that more battles will come, more reciters will die, and large portions of the Quran will be gone. Gone forever, with no way to recover them." Abu Bakr's response to this moment is one of the most human scenes in the history of this text. He didn't act, he hesitated, not because he misunderstood the danger, he understood it perfectly. He hesitated because he knew what it would mean to do something the Prophet himself had never done. How can I do what the Prophet of God did not do? Umar kept pressing. This wasn't changing the revelation. It wasn't adding to it. The Prophet had simply never needed a written collection. He was the living collection. That guarantee was gone now. They needed to replace it with something that could not die, something written, something permanent. Abu Bakr sat with that, and finally, he agreed. He called for a young man named Zayd ibn Thabit. Zayd was in his early 20s, by any measure of the time, almost too young for a task this enormous. But his credentials were extraordinary. He had been one of Muhammad's own scribes, trusted to write down revelation during the Prophet's lifetime. He knew multiple languages. He had witnessed the Prophet's final complete recitation of the Quran before his death. When Abu Bakr explained the task, Zayd's reaction was recorded in Sahih Bukhari. He didn't want to do it. "By God," he said, "if they had ordered me to move a mountain, it would not have been heavier than this." He understood exactly why. Every error he made would be permanent. Every missed verse would be gone. Every mistake would be passed to every generation that came after. He accepted anyway. What Zayd built was not a project of memory alone. His rule was simple and unforgiving. He would accept a verse only if it existed in writing and was confirmed by at least 2 witnesses who had heard it directly from the Prophet. Both conditions, always. He searched everywhere: parchments, palm leaves, pieces of bone, stone tablets. He interviewed companions one by one, cross-checking what they remembered against what was written. Then he found something that stopped him cold. The final 2 verses of the 9th chapter, Surah Al-Tawbah, existed in the possession of only one man, Abu Khuzaimah al-Ansari. An entire portion of the scripture that 2 billion people recite today came within a single human life of disappearing forever. Zayd accepted those verses after further verification. He continued. When he finished, the collected pages, called the Suhuf, were placed with Abu Bakr. When Abu Bakr died in 634, they passed to Umar. When Umar was assassinated in 644, they were entrusted to Hafsa, his daughter and one of the Prophet's widows. For the next decade, those pages stayed with Hafsa, in a private home, not copied, not distributed, not sent anywhere, just preserved. And in that decade, the world became unrecognizable. Islam expanded in the 630s and 640s at a pace historians still struggle to explain. Within 20 years of Muhammad's death, Muslim armies controlled Arabia, Persia, Syria, and Egypt. Millions of people who had never met a single companion of the Prophet were now reciting the Quran in their own dialects, from their own teachers, with their own inherited variations. Nobody had told them they were doing it differently. A soldier named Hudhaifa ibn al-Yaman returned from campaigns in Armenia and Azerbaijan. He was shaken. He had watched Muslim soldiers from Syria and Muslim soldiers from Iraq arguing, not about tactics, not about politics, about the Quran, about whose recitation was correct. Men who shared the same faith, the same God, the same revelation, staring at each other across a growing chasm. Hudhaifa went straight to the 3rd Caliph, Uthman ibn Affan. "Save this community," he said, "before they differ about their book, the way the Jews and Christians differed about theirs." Uthman understood, because Hudhaifa wasn't warning him about something that might happen. He was warning him about something that already had. Uthman's decision was clean, fast, and permanent. He sent for Hafsa's pages, the Suhuf Zayd had compiled. He assembled a committee of 4 scholars, led again by Zayd ibn Thabit, and ordered them to produce a definitive written text, multiple copies, standardized, using the dialect of Quraysh, the dialect of Mecca, the dialect Muhammad himself had spoken. When the copies were ready, Uthman sent them to the major cities: Medina, Mecca, Kufa, Basra, Damascus. Each copy accompanied by a trained reciter who could teach the exact pronunciation it was meant to carry. Then, Uthman issued an order that echoes to this day. Every other written copy of the Quran, every personal compilation, every regional variant, every private manuscript was to be burned. All of them. If you're a Sunni Muslim, this moment is an act of courageous stewardship. The variations being burned weren't differences in the content of revelation. They were differences in dialect, pronunciation, recitation style. Uthman didn't destroy authentic text. He sealed the Quran against the kind of fragmentation that had fractured earlier religious communities, and the companions, including Ali ibn Abi Talib, who would himself become caliph, accepted the standardized text without formally opposing it. The Uthmanic Codex, in Sunni scholarship, faithfully preserved exactly what Zayd had compiled under Abu Bakr, the complete, authentic revelation. If you're a Shia Muslim, this story has a different shape entirely. In the Shia tradition, the first person to compile a complete written Quran after the Prophet's death was not Zayd ibn Thabit, it was Ali ibn Abi Talib. the Prophet's cousin, his son-in-law, the man Shia Muslims believe was the rightful leader of the community from the very beginning. Ali reportedly spent 6 months after Muhammad's death assembling his own complete codex, organized not in the canonical order, but in the chronological order the revelations were actually received. He brought it to the early community. They didn't accept it. And when Uthman later standardized the text, Ali's codex was not part of the process. Now, here is the part that surprises many people. The mainstream Shia position, held by virtually every major Twelver scholar for over 1,000 years, is not that Uthman's Quran contains fabrications. The text itself is accepted as genuine revelation. What the Shia tradition disputes is the legitimacy of who compiled it and whether the correct ordering was preserved. They believe Ali compiled it first. They believe his complete, correctly ordered codex is still preserved, held in trust by the hidden Imam to be revealed at the end of time. Both traditions read the same book. They tell completely different stories about how it got there. And then there is a third story, one that neither tradition is entirely comfortable discussing. His name was Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, and he said no. Ibn Mas'ud was not a minor figure. He was among the earliest converts to Islam. He had fought at the Battle of Badr, the foundational military victory of early Islam. He was so trusted that Muhammad himself reportedly said, "Whoever wants to recite the Quran as fresh as it was revealed, let him recite according to the recitation of Ibn Mas'ud." He had his own written codex, complete, and it had become the standard text used in Kufa, one of the empire's most important cities, when Uthman's messengers arrived with the order to surrender it for burning. Ibn Mas'ud refused. He didn't hesitate. He didn't negotiate. He said, in words preserved by medieval scholars who found the account deeply uncomfortable, that he would not give up something he had received from the mouth of the Prophet himself to be replaced by a text compiled by Zayd ibn Thabit, a man who had been a child when Ibn Mas'ud was already memorizing the Quran at the feet of Muhammad. He kept his copy. The community in Kufa resisted the switch for years. Some accounts say decades, and when later scholars documented the differences between Ibn Mas'ud's codex and Uthman's, they found something that still resists simple answers. Most differences were minor: dialect, pronunciation, word order, but a few were not. Ibn Mas'ud's text did not include Surah al-Fatiha, the opening chapter, recited in every single unit of every prayer by every Muslim on earth. He also omitted the final 2 short chapters, the Mu'awwidatain, not because he had missed them, because he believed they were prayers and protective incantations, not part of the Quran itself. 14 centuries of scholarship have concluded he was wrong. But the fact that the argument exists, preserved in sources the tradition itself kept, tells you something real. The standardization of this text was not quiet. It was contested, and the people contesting it were not outsiders. For centuries, these debates remained in manuscripts and theological argument. The physical evidence was almost entirely absent. Then, in 1972, workers restoring the Great Mosque of Sanaa in Yemen broke through a false ceiling. Hidden in the loft above it, hundreds of ancient parchments, fragments of the Quran. Scholars began examining them. Most were unremarkable. One was not. It was a palimpsest, a manuscript where an older text had been scraped away and written over. Parchment was expensive in the medieval world. You reused it. You erased old ink and applied new. What they found in Sanaa was a Quran, written on top of another Quran. When scholars examined the lower layer, the older erased text underneath, they found a version of the Quran with real differences from the standard Uthmanic text. Not forgeries, not corruptions. Earlier, a snapshot of the Quran before standardization. Radiocarbon dating placed the parchment before 671 AD with 99% confidence. Behnam Sadeghi of Stanford University led the most comprehensive study of these fragments. His conclusion, the variants in the lower text are exactly the kind of regional recitation differences the Islamic tradition says existed before Uthman standardized the text. They don't reveal a secret alternate Quran. They reveal exactly what history said would be there. The physical evidence confirmed the account and complicated it at the same time. So what does all of this actually tell us? The claim that the Quran was invented or substantially fabricated long after Muhammad's death doesn't survive the evidence. The Birmingham folios, the Sanaa palimpsest, the Tübingen fragment, the fragments in Paris and Cairo, they all point in the same direction. A text recognizably identical to the Quran we have today existed within the first generation of Islam. The core was stable, early, consistent. Most secular historians accept this now, for the next 14 centuries and counting. Abu Bakr, who had to be persuaded that preserving the text was different from changing it. Zayd ibn Thabit, who said the task was heavier than moving a mountain, and did it anyway. Uthman, who chose permanence over plurality and ordered everything else burned. Hafsa, who kept the master pages in her home for a decade, the quiet custodian of the most important document in the medieval world. The Quran, most people read today, traces its lineage back through generations of reciters to Zayd's committee, to Hafsa's suhuf, to Abu Bakr's moment of reluctant agreement. Within Sunni scholarship, multiple canonical recitation traditions survived alongside the standardized text, the system known as the qira'at, different valid voices carrying the same words. We still don't know whose hand wrote them. We don't know if that person ever met Muhammad. We don't know if they were in Medina when Zayd was collecting fragments or in some other city entirely, a scribe working alone, copying what they knew before it could vanish. What we know is that they were careful. The script is deliberate. The text is consistent. Someone cared enormously about getting it right. Whether the men who came after them, Abu Bakr, Zayd, Uthman, also got it right, whether anything was lost, whether the process was legitimate, whether Ali's codex contained something that Uthman's did not. These are questions that Sunni and Shia scholars have been debating for 1400 years, and the manuscripts keep turning up. In lofts, in libraries, in documents no one looked at closely for decades. This book was preserved by blood, by memory, and by decisions no one could undo. And today, 2 billion people carry it with them.